All right. Well, welcome to Neighboring 101. This is the monthly gathering where we get to talk with leaders in the neighboring movement and discover ways that organizations and individuals can use the art and skill of neighboring as part of their community and personal development. This is session number 55, actually. Hard to believe. Just a couple of reminders. National Good Neighbor Day is September 28th. And Missouri Good Neighbor Week is September 28th to October 4th. You still have a little time to plan what you're going to do. I'll put links to both of those in the chat here in just a moment so you can learn more about them if you don't already know. Um, there will be a bonus Neighboring 101 this month. It's a video recording I did with Thomas Thompson, who's the senior advisor to the mayor in Colorado Springs. They've had an initiative there to do 1,000 block parties this summer from May 1 to September 28th. I know last week they were over 800, and every one of their 77 neighborhoods had had at least one block party. Um, but his schedule wasn't where we could do him live, so we recorded a video, and I'll release that video on September 26th to all the participants in Neighboring 101. Then in October, our guest will be Dave Colley of Hospitality Matters. We'll learn the ins and outs of hospitality and hear more about his new 8-week teaching curriculum um, about why hospitality matters and why it's so important in neighborhood relationships. Um, so, also another advantage to being on live today, we've got some door prizes that we're going to do. These are $20 gift cards. And I guess if you're already on, you're keeping your fingers crossed that fewer people join to help increase your odds. I'm giving away 5 of those, and we'll go over that a little later on about how those are being selected and being picked. But for now, I want to make great use of our guest time because I know she's been a little under the weather, and I'm so uh, glad that she's willing to join us today and tell us about her work. Um, Vanessa, uh, Vanessa Elias, I should say, is the founder of Thrive with a Guide, but Block Party USA is her passion project. She's also the founder and creator of that, and I will share that web link in the chat as well. And as the founder and creator of that organization, she knows a thing or two about Black parties, and I think it's important to hear why it's such a passion for her. She's also a mental health activist. She's a certified parent coach, and as part of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and she's also a parent group uh, support group facilitator, and she's been featured on National Public Radio and PBS and in the Wall Street Journal as well. So, Vanessa, thank you for joining us today. I can't wait to hear what you have to share with us about block parties and why you have such a passion for them.
Oh, David, thank you so much for having me. And I love the work that you do. It is so inspiring. And again, apologies. I've been battling that COVID this week, so my voice is a bit off. But I wouldn't want to miss this for the world and love meeting all of you virtually and those who are watching in video in the future of really giving neighboring. I love that it's a verb now, and really recognizing the importance of it and taking action on it, because there's one thing to realize it's important, but another to actually take action. So you all are doing that by being involved and being here. Um, so I have moved 28 times, which is part of the reason that I think community has really been important to me. I've actually lived in Wilton, Connecticut for 11 years, which, as you can imagine, is a record for me. But one of the places I lived actually for 18 months was in Missouri, and in Baldwin, Missouri. And we lived on a dead end road with a farm at the end. And I guess it must have been 9 when we moved there, and we had a block party. And it was one of the highlights of my life, honestly. And it really stuck with me. There was mixed age play. We were running around. We were chasing fireflies. The adults were having a blast. We were all on the road. I have this photo of this animal trough, used to give the animals water, of us in there swimming, cooling off, and my dad putting on an old suit and hopping in the water. And just, you can see joy on my face. It was so much fun. It was community, it was connection, and it was fun. And that also ties in with an important experience I had. My second brother was born and died at 3 days of age, and in the hospital, was undergoing heart surgery. And when my parents came home, empty-handed from the hospital, and their eyes, I'll never forget them getting out of the, station wagon with the brown paneling on the side, and just the red-eyed exhaustion. And I ran to a neighbor. I ran to a neighbor's. Mrs. Gilliam took me on her lap, rocked me, and told me how my brother was with the angels in the sky and cherubs, and I still have this visual of that. And so it was just a moment of learning how important it is for kids to have other adults in their lives when parents aren't available to be the support that they need. And how amazing was it that at the age of 9, I could run over to a neighbor and get what I needed. And so the importance, it's both like a moment of sorrow and a moment of joy. And, I lived there till I was 10, so it was a long time ago. I'm 53 now. But it really encapsulates such a moment of connection and support for me. And as I lived in David, interrupt me anytime too, by the way, please feel free. Um, as I moved around to so many places, I learned how to be vulnerable, how to put myself out there. Otherwise, I would never make friends or community. So I got really good at like building up a life and a community, and then having to tear it down as I moved to the next place. So I had a lot of practice with that. And when I moved to Wilton, Connecticut, a couple of years later, we started having, around the election, a lot of incivility issues. There were swastikas on post-it notes in the middle school. The way that politicians were being attacked online over email. And the first select woman brought us, a group of community leaders, together, and when we were talking, I realized, the face-to-face experience that so many of these legislators, who were volunteers even, that we're receiving from people who lived here, were so different than their online experience. And so I realized we really need a way for more face-to-face interaction. We were depending on social media and email to connect us, and it's just not the same. And then the other piece, I lived in Europe for 6 years before, in 2 places in England and then Switzerland. And coming back to the US, I realized um, what a significant difference the American kids were having as their childhood. There was such lack of free play. They were overscheduled. And quite frankly, their mental health was suffering, and mental health of parents. And so this was an opportunity for me. I was running a nonprofit on the emotional, social well-being of youth. And it was an opportunity. I realized connecting face to face and neighborhood free play. And so I brought the two together and launched Wilton's Big Block Party Weekend in 2018. And
It's a
it has
tradition that still
become,
continues, I understand,
and the
right?
tradition still continues. We took a break in 2020, thanks to that COVID thing. And we have been doing it ever since. And it's now merged into a couple of years. Actually, last year I went official. I realized I heard story upon story. There were towns nearby that wanted to learn how we did it, how we made this happen. And so I was sharing this with them, and then I realized this is something we need nationwide. This has the potential to make a huge difference. Um, and in our entire country. And so, neighbor by neighbor. And so that's when I launched Block Party USA. Um,
Yeah, and I love your
last year.
emphasis on the relationship part of that, right? Making those connections with people. Um, that's such an that's the linchpin, right? That's the most important part is that relationship.
Yep.
So what did I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you know, cornerstone of human happiness is connection and relationships. And it's really easy to neglect them, right? We're a very task-oriented world. And even within our families, like one of the things I say is my work as a parent coach and as Block Party USA founder is to build community and strengthen relationships within your home and outside of your home, because that is what makes a life worth living. And
Yeah. Yeah.
block parties make it actionable.
Is it the free play element that you talk about? Is that what has drawn media attention to your block party efforts, or do you just think there's this growing interest in block parties as a way to gather?
Both, yes. And I really see block parties as a cure for our isolation, our loneliness, our divisiveness, our youth mental health crisis. It really ticks all the boxes. Your neighbors are your first responders. And so, the Surgeon General has come out with all of the health risks of loneliness, of the technology, right? We want to take our kids off of technology, but then they're just stuck in their own, like we need to give them something to do. We can't just take away, because actually technology does offer connection.
Yeah,
For
yeah. So I'm thinking I'm going to host a block party, and I know your time is limited today. I want to make good use of that. Um, so what are your big go-to tips, I guess, on how to plan a successful block party gathering? Does size matter? Does the
yeah, thank
methods
you for
matter?
saying that. Yes. The only thing that matters is keeping it simple. It has to be sustainable. And the the way it's a success is if you have two households or more together. That's my success. So it really is so interesting. People think bigger is better, but it actually isn't. It's great if you get, a bunch of neighbors together, but it's also great if you don't, because it's anonymous if you have too many people. And
Yes.
so the real connection and conversation can happen when you have a smaller number. So, people say we just had ours a couple weeks ago and they're like, oh, we have a really good turnout this year. You must be happy. I'm like, I was happy last year too. And there was only two, you know. So and I have on my website, it's blockpartyusa.org, which I know you put in the chat, David. I have this guide that I created to keep it simple. And it is a step-by-step guide. And the first thing is to keep it simple. And try to find someone to do it with so it's not all on you. Someone that in the neighborhood, setting a date that works for you, and knowing that you're not going to get everyone to go. Everyone has busy lives, and even if they want to go, they may not be able to. But I know that from the invitations I just had posted, I got texts from people saying, thank you so much for doing this. I'm sorry we can't make it, but we appreciate it. Like they feel included just being invited. And
Yeah.
that benefit in and of itself. So yeah,
Yeah.
following this, and I'm a big fan of name tags. That's the most important thing, is name tags, because what we included on ours is how many years you'd lived in the neighborhood. So that was a really fun, conversation piece. The person that's lived there 3 months, versus the person that has lived there for 42 years. That was the highest that we had.
Yeah. Well, I know that at least one other person on this Zoom that's a big fan of name tags. Chet
Yeah.
talks about that frequently.
Do you
And
chat? Yes. Name tags are the best. I personally
Nice.
think everyone should walk around with name tags all the time.
They're just an easy icebreaker. They like help people recognize that, hey, we have more in common than we realize. On our block parties, we have like your address, we have the hometown you grew up in. But
Ah,
I think there's a lot more you could do there, like maybe put like a sticker for whether you play an instrument or you like to walk or bike or play chess or you like the local sports team or etc.
I like the sticker idea because I didn't want them to get too crowded. So we put our name and then we put the street number, our address, and then how many years you've lived in the town. And I love those ideas. Those are great. The little, like, I could just picture them like an orange little dot or something like that on there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love what you're saying about the size. It can be so big that it becomes impersonal because it's really about the connections, not about entertaining. And
Oh,
I saw that when I was in Colorado Springs this summer. We went to a couple of block parties, and one was extravagant. There was a big turnout. It was in a park. Um, some members of that neighborhood had a band and they played, and it was great as far as a party. I met really no one other than the person in the lawn chair next to me. There just wasn't that opportunity to connect because people just sat in lawn chairs and listened.
exactly.
And
It's a fun party, right?
yes,
But this is
yes,
really about, and I have the Google updates, so I see block party wherever it shows up, and many of them they're called block parties, but they're like citywide parties. They're not. I'm really talking about a neighborhood party, right?
yes,
And I think that is and the other problem of just not connecting, right? It's like a fun party to go to, and I like those too. But the other part is it becomes not sustainable for the organizers. So I have weekly Zoom calls where people hop on. David and I actually got to have a nice chat on one. And people can ask me any questions. And there were two women, one out from outside of Boston, one outside of Philly. And one of the women described herself as the reluctant block party organizer because the two women that have been doing it before got burnt out because they had a band, they had a bouncy house, they had stations, they had da 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 da. It was just too much. And then it's a production. And
yeah.
none of us need a production in our life. Let's keep it simple. It's just about chalk and, jump rope and, beanbag toss or something like that. Just really keeping it simple. Um, and that's all it is.
I love that. Well, do you have time for maybe a question or two if any participants want to ask a
Absolutely.
question? Yeah,
Yeah, I love it.
this is your chance. If you're on live, this is your chance to
The
ask Vanessa a question. Jump in.
I saw some things in chat. Let me have a look.
Well, she covered everything so well that, you know, keeping it simple, I think is probably the best advice that I can see. I work for the city of Excelsior Springs, and we invested in some yard games. We got cornhole and horseshoes and Jenga and those kinds of things that now people can rent the kit. Actually, don't have to rent it. They can just check out the kit for their block party. So we haven't quite implemented it yet. I got to do the fun part of shopping for all the games, but now we just need to figure out how we get that message out there that, hey, this thing is available to have for your block party.
Laura, I love that. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And what a brilliant idea. We don't all need to have that. We don't all need to own it. Just borrowing it and taking it out is great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Chet.
Hey Vanessa, I was perusing your website ahead of the call, and I noticed your block party ripple effect. Um, I don't know if you're already planning to speak to that, or if maybe you could talk about that a little more. I'll throw the
Yeah.
link in the chat as well so people can follow along.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that I had wanted to pull it up before, but I had to get myself some tea. Because I did want to share that on screen because that is new and thank you for noticing it. And it's something I've been working because I don't have any stats. It's like a whole other, thing. Everybody wants the numbers. But I have a ton of impact stories over the years of people doing them. And so I tried to put them into this block party ripple effect graphic. And it's one block party that, maybe you won't meet your best friend forever, right? But the benefit of talking to strangers who then become people that you just see in the road and then the lifelong impact of this one connection and the ripple effect of it. I will pull it up Oh, actually, it's right here. I can screen
Yeah.
share. I've got it. Where is it? Right here. There it is. Can you guys see it?
There we can now, yes.
Okay. So you can see this one block party and the ripples of it, right? Creating this neighborhood contact list, getting advice, recommendations, babysitters, meal trains these are all things that have happened. I base these on other people's stories of how they've been impacted, obviously limited. And ultimately it's just a win-win-win, and it's free and it's actionable. I can't say it enough. So this is most recently, the text groups have been helpful, right? This summer there have been, I have 42 zucchini. Does anybody want some? To the trees down, there's a tree down across the road. They say they're going to get it taken off at 3 o'clock. I've lost a dog. I mean, just little tiny things that can make a difference in connecting. I will tell you also another story I have. I think I made a share with you, David. I'd gone to Morocco and got stomach, issues afterwards and was down and out. And my neighbor heard I had posted somewhere asking for a hydration station. And my neighbor saw it. And within minutes, there was a note at my front door with some, liquid IV and hydration packets. I mean, it was so meaningful, it was so wonderful, and to feel taken care of. And we just don't, as the Surgeon General also said, like, parents are not okay. And to have support in your neighborhood is a never mind playmates for your kids, is a really important thing, because our future depends on parents being okay. Anyway, that's a chat. Is there something specific about this that you were having thoughts on, or?
No, I just loved all the different examples that, maybe aren't top of mind, or maybe we don't recognize, and how one social gathering can continue to pay dividends, for months and years to come. I had a follow-up question. You mentioned the value and importance of free play for children.
Yeah.
Recognizing that a lot of times many of the organizers and attendees of some of these block parties are adults. Can you speak to the value and importance of providing space and opportunities for adults to, interact and play as well?
Absolutely. That is, I mean, literally play, like you can have the beanbag toss cornhole there for people to play, but just to get to know each other, to make that connection. What I find is that people are so afraid of getting something wrong that the Block Party USA concept allows them the framework and gives them permission to reach out to their neighbors to organize this, right? See, one of the issues I have found is that people are like, I've lived here 7 years. If I reach out now, it's weird, right? Like, I want to, but I don't know how. And then when they're together, right, it gives them a framework to be able to make the connections while they're talking and sharing, what team or how long they've lived there and all that stuff. And to find joy, to find other relationships, because so many people are isolated. They work from home, right? They aren't going into an office. And so to have your neighborhood where you can go for a walk, and when I say neighborhood, it could be an apartment building, right? A floor in an apartment building. It could be, your neighborhood where you have sidewalks, or, more rural where you actually can't see your neighbor. That's still your neighbor. And so to have that connection with each other and find, yeah, just the human connection, really.
Yeah. Well, I think you've given us some great food for thought, and I love the ripple effect map, because even in Springfield, as we've been doing block parties, you do get asked, why is the city worried about block parties when there's potholes that should be filled?
Yes.
And trying to make that argument over and over. And so I love the ripple effect map. I think it shows some of those long-term impacts that are good to talk about. And so not just for me, but maybe for others to use that tool to explain why block parties are important. So
They are.
a great way to connect.
They are. Yeah,
Well,
thank you. I really, thanks for the opportunity to preach to the choir, so to speak. Um, but it's really, it's a special thing. And I think what's important, the only other piece is it's important is that to be brave, right? That it takes some courage, vulnerability to reach out and plan something like this. And you can do it. People can do hard things, and
yes.
we can do it, and it's worth it. It will, I promise whoever does it, it'll be worth it.
Um, I was asked here in chat about how I answered the pothole question. So that's a long answer. Uh, but I will tell you that that also comes up in my interview with Thomas Thompson from Colorado Springs, because they got that same sort of pushback. And his whole emphasis, I think, is that the city can do both. It's not either or, the city can do both.
It's an
And that would be more in keeping with an asset-based community development approach, as opposed to a scarcity mindset where people are saying it can only be one or the other, but we can do both. And there's very compelling reasons to do both, and we can.
Absolutely. I love that.
Well, thank you again, Vanessa, for your time. Even when you were under the weather, you were able to join us, and we appreciate you doing so. And you're welcome to stay on. We're going to do some breakout rooms and do some chatting together, or you can
Thank you. No, I want to stay.
go rest. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, I'd love to stay. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, please go to blockpartyusa.org and sign up to get my updates, or I did not mention the back to school challenge that I'm having. It's a Block Party USA challenge to see which states, residents of which states can organize the most block parties it was mid-August until September 30th.
All
So
right.
if you've had a block party, register your block party, because right now, what do you know? Connecticut's in the lead.
It's you're doing a great job of getting the word out.
Thank you. Thanks, David. And you too. Thank you.
Well, we've not done breakout rooms before, but someone had mentioned a few months ago that they've been on these calls, they don't really know the other participants, and thought this might be a good thing to add into future events. Plus, this month we're kind of billing it as an online block party, and I'm going to let the computer divide us up into those groups, into those breakouts. But our first discussion question is um, going to be right there in chat. What do you love most about your neighborhood, and how long have you lived there? So you might introduce yourself, where you're at. You're only going to be in these, um, and the computer's going to automatically assign you, and you're only going to be in there for about 8 minutes. So you're going to need to keep it snappy in your conversation, but just share with each other what you love most about this neighborhood that you live in, and how long have you lived there. And then we'll jump onto a couple other questions after that. All right. So here we go. And just click on your join feature there.